Good afternoon. My name is Meredith Closey. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here to talk about this important topic of mental health court. And we'll be joined by Aaron and Travis, who will share a little bit about themselves. And then we'll, have some questions, an opportunity for some questions to talk about some, more in depth about what mental health court is. This is a webinar format. So you will see that there is no chat function, and there is also no function for you to put your video or sound on. If you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. And Heidi will be keeping an eye on that and making sure that we get to, as many questions as we're able to. This webinar will be recorded. And so after the webinar is complete, we will get it up on our NAMI YouTube page, and you will also receive an email with information on how to find this webinar, should you wish to watch it again or share it with someone. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Erin and ask her to introduce herself and talk a little bit about mental health court.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. My name is Erin Guyette. I work at Stratford County Community Corrections. I am a senior case manager in mental health supervision. We do a lot of things at Stratford County Community Corrections. We supervise people pre-trial, post-trial. That's where we have our Stratford County Drug Court. But why we're here today is I am the case manager for our mental health court. So we have a mental health court out of Rochester District Court. And that's our mental health court for Stratford County. Currently in the state, we have 13 mental health court programs. They are a little bit different, but we're trying to all get on the same page. Mental health court is a program that someone is sentenced into. It's a 3-phase program. And it's, the main purpose, and Travis will talk about it, is sort of get you out of either jail time or any other possible ramifications of some sort of criminal charge. The point of it is to keep someone in mental health court. Well, first engage them with mental health treatment and then keep them in mental health treatment. And really our main focus is so that people in general buy into it, that are our clients in mental health court, so that once they're done with our program, they will continue and stay healthy. One of the big benefits of mental health court is if you choose to come in and you plea into the program, after a year, you can get this, after a year of good behavior after the program, you can get it annulled from your record. So that's sort of like the key thing that people want, especially if they don't have a criminal record. So it's sort of an overview. I can get specific if people have questions.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that. Appreciate that overview as well. And I'm sure that we'll have a lot more questions as we move along. And before I move it over to Travis, though, I do want to just ask a clarifying question. How does someone find out? You said they're sentenced into it. Is it something that they would hear about from an attorney? Would they need to ask for it?
So mostly we get referrals either from our program, community corrections, prosecutors, public defenders. Sometimes their community mental health center. These are all people that are part of the mental health court team. So on a team, there's a judge, a public defender, a prosecutor, a director, a case manager, and then usually a liaison from the community mental health center. So they can really come from anywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Travis, would love to have you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and your experience with mental health court.
Yeah. So I first heard about mental health court from my defense attorney. She told me that that was her plan from the beginning, to get me into the program and hopefully just get back on track, because I had no prior legal troubles, got into some trouble for driving charges, and was able to get into the program. I believe it was October 24th of 2024. And from there on, I didn't really know what it'd be. I thought it was more just kind of supervised, like, re-entry back into the community. especially after we solved the issue of like being on bail to transferring into mental health court. And from there on, got into the program. It was once a week for about 3 to 4 months. And then as you do well, she moved me up to once every 2 weeks, then once every month. And it just, I spoke about it at the end of it. I didn't really know what it meant to be in mental health court at first. Again, I had an idea, but you also get to see other people's like stories as you go along because other people talk about their weeks with the judge and with Aaron. But you also get to see other people's struggles in similar different situations, all in the same, but it was very humbling to know that I also wasn't the only one going through stuff like this. I was just very fortunate enough to have a good enough support system around me that I didn't really have any hiccups and was able to stay on the right track and was able to finish up the program. I believe it was about a month and a half or 2 months early, and was very grateful for the opportunity and was grateful for the second chance because it could have been a lot worse. I could have done more time in jail or time in prison instead, and it really was a second chance for me, like just as a human in general.
You for sharing. Um, I'm wondering, you said you didn't really know much about it. When you got in, what did you find most helpful or, what were you surprised about? I mean, you mentioned a little bit, hearing other people's stories. But could you expand on that?
So what was helpful for me was overall the structure, because I don't know if it's just a guy thing or just me with ADHD. I don't really have a set plan, at least didn't before all this. And it kind of gave me structure. They would give you almost, I wouldn't call it like homework assignments, but they'd be like, we want you to achieve this um, within a certain amount of time. They wouldn't give you a specific time frame. It was more, we want you to succeed on your own. We'll give you an idea of what we want from you and what we think will help you excel and stay on the right path, not only in this program, but a year from now, 5 years and 10 years, and just setting that foundation. And that was really helpful for me, was being able to hear what they thought was best, would talk about it with my close family and friends, and just overall do the kind of structured guidelines they had. And it was very helpful. And I still even use that kind of routine in my daily life. And in terms of the stories from other people, it was helpful to see what other people were going through and how it was different from person to person, from case to case. But there was also hard times to see somebody who's actively struggling, whether it was with addiction or falling into old habits or old routines or even going back to an old place and being sucked into an old lifestyle. And it's hard because you can feel like you're doing well and be doing all the right things, but you see somebody struggling, it's very hard to see at the same time. So that was one of the things I didn't really expect and was very humbling.
Thank you for sharing that. And Aaron, I'm wondering from your perspective, as a case manager, what do you see often as the most helpful? And maybe there's a couple of things, aspects of the mental health court um, system.
I think having a team of people that have different perspectives. What happens is we have a team meeting before court each week. We have court every Thursday. And so there's a group of us that, the team that I said, the judge, a couple attorneys, the director, myself, treatment, we all get together and we talk about how the client is doing. And then they go before the judge. And I think it's a really different, and Travis can correct me if I'm wrong, but like a very different experience going in front of the judge, right? Because it's a little bit more informal and you have a group of people that support you. Um, and I do think, there a lot of people don't have structure. And so what Travis was talking about is just setting little goals. So each phase to move to the next phase, we set a goal. And it could be, at first it's just going to your appointments, taking your meds. But then as we move forward, maybe getting a job, maybe looking at getting into school. And then each week we're holding that person accountable. And we're giving incentives if they do what they need to do. And then sometimes we have to give sanctions if they don't. But I think in general, going back, it's just a group of people that maybe wouldn't normally support this person.
And I see we've got some questions in the Q&A. Mhm.
With the first question. So the first question is, it's so common for people to say that they didn't know about mental health court. So what is New Hampshire doing to help publicize the process and encourage individuals who are eligible to look into it and to provide enough information to help people make a good choice about it? I don't know if you want to chime in on that, Erin?
Yeah, sure. I definitely think it's getting bigger and more people are talking about it. I can give you a little bit of history of it. In 2014, there was an RSA 6515, that enabled the creation of mental health court. So we're in the beginning of trying to get funding for it. We're trying still to get funding. In 2020, they did a revision to that, which allowed for early annulment, which I think then got more people or more attorneys, especially obviously defense attorneys, to buy into people getting into mental health court. I think, I mean, it's always about money, but I think if more people talking about it and getting funding will make it bigger. Drug court's really big nationally, really big in the state, and we're just trying to reach there.
Okay. The next question is, are there specific crimes that are excluded from mental health court? And then how are the assessments and decisions made if the alleged crime is a violent one?
So I am not going to just make that answer up. I'm not 100% sure if there's specific crimes. I know that excludes someone from going in, but everyone that applies for mental health court, we go over an assessment program or assessment process. So not specifically a crime, but we have to link it to, was the crime that happened directly related to a mental health incident, right? So it's not just anyone can get into it.
I'm wondering too, with that assessment period, or assessment process, excuse me. So, it's linking the mental health, or the crime to the mental health challenge.
Yeah.
Are there other things that could potentially exclude someone, from being able to participate, even if their crime was connected to mental health?
Well, going back to the original question, so no sexual assault crimes are pled into it. So new information. But is there certain things that exclude you? Yes. I mean, you have to be engaged in mental health treatment, right? So if there's someone that doesn't want to do mental health treatment, and we can work with them, we can try to get them to go to appointments. We're not going to, but if they're flat out telling their attorney, I'm not going to participate in that, no, they're not going to come into mental health court. So I would say that's probably the biggest barrier. Also, this right now, the state and defense have to agree to it. So there's always there's referrals that happen that they don't go through because not everyone wants mental health court as a victims, or other parties don't want it as a end goal. But we always go through the process.
And I
All
wonder,
right.
oh, I'm just gonna ask one more question, Heidi, and then I'll pass it back over to you. And this is for Travis specifically. Were there any barriers for you to attend and participate in mental health court?
Yeah, it was hard to get the prosecutors to agree, specifically from Stratford County, because that was the bulk of my charges. I believe I had a couple felonies for my driving charges, and the prosecutor it took about 7 months, I believe, till he came to an agreement on it from at least the time I made bail. From the time of the incident, took over a year. And that was the big hurdle in New Hampshire. And once we got Stratford County to agree, Rockingham County then agreed. And then even in Maine, they don't have any mental health court programs, nothing like that. They don't have any diversionary programs for first time offenders of any crime in general. And the judge asked my opinion on it. And I said it was very helpful. It gave me structure. And at this time, I wasn't even in the program for 4 months when I talked to him. And he was like, I want to look into this and see if it's something that could help up here. And he just asked, then he asked me to just keep on the right track. But again, the prosecutor in Maine didn't want to agree to any time suspended agreement either, even though I was in mental health court. There's just a lot of prosecutors who don't want to agree to it, especially if they think it deserves like jail or prison time. So that's the biggest hurdle, is getting the prosecutors to agree from my point of view.
Are you ready for the next question? Is mental health court a client or family? Can a client or family actually ask about at the initial trial? This is actually a two-part question. So if someone wants to answer that part, Aaron, I think that's probably more directed to you.
So mental health court would be, it's something that you get sentenced to, so it wouldn't happen at trial, but it can be brought up at any time. It could be brought up at the beginning when someone gets arraigned initially, when they've been arrested on the charges. Typically, it's not that quickly because there's issues about getting discovery and getting the, not everyone's ready to make a decision because again, these clients have to plead guilty to a charge to get into mental health court. But yes, it can come at any time. A family could refer to a program. It always would go through the defense attorney. So we as a program would reach out to parties and say, this person gave a recommendation. Are you okay with us giving an application to the participant? But
Okay.
it could start as early as arraignment, yes.
Okay. And the second part of the question for this participant asked also, can you explain more what the program looks like? So Travis, maybe you can talk about that. They want to know, is there group therapy? What do the check-ins look like? If you want to explain more what the program looked like from your perspective.
Yeah, so the check-ins, it's really dependent on the person, so I can only speak from my perspective. Um, the check-ins, I would just talk with Aaron. I would talk about, at first it was week to week, so my week, or again, as it got later on, my weeks or month at that point, and we'd just talk about how I'm doing, how I'm trying to achieve the goals. For me, the big one was overall just maintaining therapy, staying in a consistent job, had a place to live. I've lived in the same place for almost 2 years now, had the same job for almost 2 years, and just overall maintaining that consistency week to week and then month to month. And then in terms of the check-ins with the judge, which would be, I believe, Thursday mornings, it was more informal. And like Erin had said, and she was very easygoing, but also would give you the structure, but also the encouragement you need to just keep on the right track.
Okay. Aaron, do you want to give any other input on that as like what you see? Because it is more, is individualized of like what it could look like for the programming, like what are some of the things that either you're asking for or that you're seeing that individuals are participating in?
Sure. So everyone has, in general, a 12-month program. It can be 6 months, but in general, it's 12 months. It's a 3-phase program. So initially, they're reporting in once a week to see case management and then see a judge. And then it gets less and less. After 4 months, it's every 2 weeks, and then it gets once a month, with the hope of them being independent. Myself as a case manager is constantly like communicating with the community mental health center, making sure they're making appointments, making sure that, talking about any concerns that they might have. And then working on, so that's the mental health component, but obviously there's a bunch of other things. Some of our people are struggling with substance use. So sometimes we're talking about substance use providers. So we'll refer them out to different places, making sure they're looking for employment if that's one of their goals, school, a variety of things.
Okay. The next question is mental health now available throughout the state, no matter where someone is court involved?
I'll talk about that. So right now we have it, right now we have 13 total. One in every county except for Coos and Sullivan. Some are in superior courts and some are in district courts. So the majority, we're trying to get one in each county, but the majority of the counties do have a mental health court. And then all the on the state website, there's all the mental health court contact people that anyone can look up and see, depending on where someone is arrested or who they want to refer them to, you could look that up.
And the next question is, do mental health courts and drug courts ever work together?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they can never separately be in two different programs at the same time, but we've definitely, not a lot, but have referred someone that's struggling with a substance use, and it sort of seems to be the bigger piece. We have switched them over, but in general, we're working together in the sense that, we're sharing resources, making sure, for instance, for me, if someone's struggling with a substance use, like if I don't know a place to send them, a sober living or something like that, that I reach out to them. But yes, we are definitely working together.
And I
Okay.
just wanted to ask a clarifying question about that because you said that, folks can't be in both drug court and mental health court. How, if someone is struggling with both mental health and substance use, as we know, they can be, sort of intertwined. How would the decision about which court would make the most sense happen?
I think we get treatment providers' perspective, but mainly it's what the primary diagnosis is. So what are they primarily struggling with, and what court could serve them better. So if it's a primarily mental health diagnosis and they're using substances because of their mental health diagnosis, mental health court might be more appropriate. There's, a majority of people in drug court that have a mental health diagnosis. It's just what the primary diagnosis is and what treatment court can serve them better. Our focus is making sure someone's in mental health treatment, taking medication, going to their appointments. And we help with a variety of other things, but that's what mental health court's focus is.
And the next question kind of talks a little bit about that. So they're wondering if the people that are in the New Hampshire program through mental health court, if there's support around finding housing, employment, and other additional treatment options, which I know you touched base on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we currently have for drug court and mental health court a community housing program. So that's funding to help people that for a short period of time with either paying for apartments. Travis, I think we had applied for you, but I don't know where it went with that. But anyways, yeah, there's a community housing program from people in mental health court to help them pay for their rent, start up with paying for a couple months of rent. Sometimes it pays for sober living. But that's a program that we have that has some funding. But in general, yeah, I mean that's part of my job in case management is to help them with all those other resources.
I'm wondering, just, if someone is working and this question's, maybe for you primarily, Travis, and then maybe Erin's got some thoughts too. How did you feel like you were able to navigate work and, mental health court? Were there any struggles with that, or did it feel like, you got the support you needed to be able to do both?
I definitely had the support I needed to do both. Erin had mentioned like even finding financial assistance because number one, it's just expensive to live right now between housing, um, if you have pets, if you are even just groceries now, everything's just expensive. She helped me apply for the assistance program that she talked about. I unfortunately didn't get accepted, but they give you those building blocks to be able to try and just sustain a healthy lifestyle. Because unfortunately, even if it comes down to the simple things like food, unfortunately, the unhealthy option is usually cheaper.
All right. The next question is asking, why are we continuing to separate the substance use and mental health condition? And is there any effort to combine the courts because that would make more sense? So do you know if at some point would it be like considered to be rather than mental health court and drug court? I'm sure that's more of an Erin question.
At this time, I don't think there's any, at least for us, to merge those two together. We all know that both of those that they both come together, but I do think that the courts are based on what we're focusing on. And so at this time that they're going to be separated.
All right, next question is, if the client pleads guilty for mental health court, is the charge put on your record and then removed after a year if the program is completed?
Yeah, so they would complete, if they graduate, they complete the program, and then they have to be arrest free for one other year, an additional year, and after that they can get it annulled from their record, which is obviously huge for someone that doesn't have a criminal record.
Okay, and this question is for Travis. Was there anything along the way that you didn't feel like that was helpful or something that didn't work through the process of mental health court?
I wouldn't say anything that they did. It was again more just hearing the stuff other people were going through. And if you see somebody who is actively struggling with a substance use disorder or again a coexisting mental health disorder and you have to see them going through it, that's probably the hardest thing. And it did take a toll on me a little bit throughout the program, was seeing other people struggle with similar issues. That one was probably the hardest, but I wouldn't say anything in terms of the structure or the guidelines they give, because again, they give you the freedom to succeed or fail. It's really up to you and the decisions you make and the discipline you have. But just seeing other people struggling with mental health issues and also with substance use issues, again, they go hand in hand, but it's just hard to see. That's something that I didn't expect and still is hard to see.
Okay. The next question is, how does this charge impact finding a job if you have to plead guilty?
Do you want to answer that, Travis?
Yeah. Jobs, it if you're going more for a career, something that doesn't have a, I forget what the word is, but usually second chance employers where they allow people who have either felony records or even just misdemeanors, it can be a bit of a struggle. Thankfully, I'm in the food industry, so it's not too much of a barrier. But the one thing that is harder isn't even jobs; it's finding housing. If you have any charges that include any destruction of property, even if it's just a misdemeanor, like you could um, break somebody's window or act like any damage to property, it makes it very hard to find housing. Very hard.
Okay. Did you have anything that you wanted to chime in about that, Aaron? Like, as far as, do you guys actually have some community relationships with people in regards to trying to help them find jobs that might be more open to those charges?
Yeah, I mean, we know of a lot of places that hire people that have criminal records. I do think what Travis, similar to what Travis was saying, is the challenge is sometimes that's not what people want for a long-term career. So that's a struggle, and I think how we work with that is encouraging people to, if they need to go to school for a certain career, and then obviously the annulment piece is huge. So
Okay.
I was just wondering, you mentioned, and I think you said, Travis, you weren't sure if this was the kind of official name, but second chance employers, are there, folks in New Hampshire? I mean, you do have relationships with people, but are there ways for employers who would be open to supporting folks to be able to sort of be identified so that people know, oh, this might be a place that I could go to? Is there anything like that?
Um, that I'm not too sure. Um, I know that it's from at least when I've talked with bosses or even job interviews I've had, they more take it case to case and they judge it based on the contents of somebody's character, especially if it's an individual instance, not again, a like, repeated actions of the same infraction over and over. They're much more patient and understanding and are willing to give people the opportunity if it's a singular incident versus a repeated pattern. But still is a hurdle. I don't know how else to word it. It is sometimes a struggle finding jobs with a record.
yeah.
Hey, Travis, if you were to give any advice to either an individual or a family member that would be supporting somebody that is like questioning, should I do mental health court? What would be the benefits? Can you explain more like what you would actually say to somebody? Like, say, for instance, you meet a friend and they say, you know what, I think I'm going to see if I can get qualified for mental health court. What would you give them as far as some recommendations or your little elevator, speech of what you would say about mental health court.
Yeah. If somebody was facing charges and had the opportunity to go into mental health court, I would highly encourage it. Um, I would also just tell them to just be okay with the mundane. I don't know if that's just as I get older, it's going to work, going home, spending time with family and friends, and just overall doing the things that are boring usually ends up with being in a place to succeed. Because I know the things that get people in trouble are usually the reckless behaviors, the things that give you adrenaline. Just be okay with being boring sometimes. People want to go out for drinks, stay home. If people want to go out and stay out all night, choose to stay home. Just overall do the boring thing and usually you'll end up in a good position. I know that's weird advice, but I've seen it work for people over and over.
Okay, next question is, what is the success/graduation rate for the program? That's probably an Aaron question.
Yes. I can tell you, I can't speak for other mental health courts, but we have had, we started in 2007. We've had 179 participants, and 116 of them have graduated. 22 opted out, 34 were terminated, and then there was about 7 that didn't complete, or unfortunately, there was passed away.
Can you just expand upon why someone might not complete? Again, you said there was an opt-out option, but why might someone be terminated and unable to complete the program?
I think, in general, we do a really good job of giving people a bunch of chances to kind of do what they need to do. I think ultimately someone would either opt out or get terminated if they're not willing, like I said at the beginning of this, not willing to engage in treatment. I think that's sort of the core of it. Um, we've had people that have gotten new charges and they kind of get it together, that's a setback, but they get it together and they end up graduating. So it's not even really necessarily that. I think it's ultimately if they're just not engaging in treatment, there's really nothing we can do as a group. And so they would either get terminated, but sometimes someone would just opt out. um, Typically there's a jail sentence that's attached if you don't complete, and they have chosen, after being in the program for probably way longer than a year, to just go and do the jail time and move on.
Okay, so the next comment is not a question, but it's a big kudos to Travis. Thank you for sharing your experience. You've been incredible, thoughtful, and forthright in helping us understand this process. So kudos to Travis. And then the next comment, which kind of, aligns with that same positive, comment to Travis is, does mental health court have peers who can help going through the process? Travis would be an excellent candidate. It makes me think about what we know about peer counselors working with mobile crisis. So is there a peer component that is part of mental health court?
We are actually working on getting a peer component. We did have a peer. We've had a couple peers, but they weren't so formalized. So yeah, I actually have reached out to NAMI to sort of start getting that piece and having it be a little bit more formalized. And Travis would absolutely be a great person. So
All right, so that's most of the questions. If anybody else wants to quickly put any questions in the chat, we do have some time for more questions. So I'll wait and see if anyone wants to put anything else in. I think we're pretty much caught up. There was a couple that were similar, so we kind of just had a few repeats.
I just wanted to circle back to a question we had asked Travis, what his advice would be. Aaron, I would love to hear what your advice would be, to and maybe, both the person who might be going through it, but also the people around them, because it can be really challenging, as we know, for loved ones to support someone when they're struggling.
I guess I would say that, so I work in pretrial as well as mental health court. So when someone's coming in right off after getting arrested or even just getting sentenced to mental health court, they are sometimes at their worst that they've been in. And it really seems what they present to me and what I see is it really seems like hopeless. Like, this will be my life. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe this crime has been committed. And I have to deal with the ramifications similar to Travis. I mean, Travis was facing prison time in 3 different counties due to this like 3 day, I don't want to speak for Travis, but due to his crimes in a short period of time, three counties where he was facing prison time in. And so when I met Travis, he was pretty down. Obviously, he'd been in jail. How long were you in jail for?
And when we had met, that was 230 days in jail. It was March 18th of 2024, I believe. And I had spent 231 days in jail. I got out, I think, 7 a.m. on March 19th.
Okay, so they're really down. And what I would say to them, to the participant, I would say is, like, it's going to be okay. You just have to be present and you have to do the best that you can right now. It's not going to change what happened, but it's certainly not going to make it worse. And it will get better and it won't be as big. And you can just kind of control what you can moving forward. For their people around them, is that I would just, like, if you're asking specifically with like family and friends, I would just say that it takes a process. It's not going to get better right away. And it's really scary at first, I'm sure. I feel it. I'm not a participant, but I feel it. But that if you do go into mental health court, there's a huge team that supports you. I think all of us genuinely care. Um, you know, Judge Ashley is our judge in Rochester District Court. She's been with us forever. And I forget what year, I think it's like 2014, but I might be wrong. Maybe sooner. And she is so supportive, and she genuinely, along with the rest of the team, wants people to get better. So I think it's just kind of knowing that there's a team around you that will have your back, but you got to be able to put in the work.
All right, and we have a few more questions that have come in. So the next one is, in what way does mental health court uphold trauma-informed values for the clients and within the organization?
We're constantly looking at that if there's something that comes up. But the really cool thing about mental health court is part of our team is someone that is from a treatment center. So part of our team is one of the directors at our community mental health center. And so that's really a good resource that we have to, when we're making decisions about incentives and sanctions and how to work with someone and goals, we're really reaching out to the treatment providers to really make sure that we're doing what we need to do.
Okay, so the next question is, I know that some police forces are training mental health first responders. How involved have they been with the mental health court, if at all? So individual police departments or first responders.
I don't want to speak for other mental health courts. We have had, support. We definitely have support from the police departments, and we would always love a liaison from the police department. We currently don't have one, but we certainly have their support, because a lot of cases that go in district court come from police departments that are prosecuting their own cases. So we have that support to get them into mental health court. We could certainly use more, but I do think there's a push right now, and have been for a while, to get people more informed about mental illness when dealing with clients in the community.
Just a follow-up question. Has there ever been a liaison type role, either at your mental health court or any other one? Or is that something that is, being considered for the future at all? Because it sounds like that could be really beneficial to kind of bridge the communication.
Yes, for a liaison for particularly the police department.
Yes.
Yes, we've had one. We just currently don't have one right now. And yes.
Thank you.
All right. The next question is, can you expand more on what the incentives look like and the sanctions for the program?
Do you want to speak, Travis, or?
Yeah. The incentives, if you're doing well and then you're doing all the things that are required of you and you're staying out of trouble, just keeping your head down, they will even progress you through the phases early. The first phase, I believe, is 2 to 4 months or 3 to 4 months, and then each phase is that amount of time. But if you're doing well, you can get early progression into that. If you're supposed to go in the beginning once every, technically on Monday every week and then Thursday every week in front of the judge, sometimes they'll be like, if you just want to skip the check-in on Monday, just come back on Thursday. We'll see you then, especially if there's a holiday or something. They won't make you come on a different day and change around your schedule. Um, they also have a candy bowl with also like they have like toys like I don't know, like fidget toys. I don't know. Like and it's strangely helpful. Just because positive reinforcement, if you're doing well, you just reach your hand in a candy bowl, grab something. I know it seems again like very simple, but it works. Who doesn't want sugar? I don't know, but um, the ramifications, I've seen people have to write letters or an essay on why they're not being truthful or forthcoming if they didn't pass a drug test or refuse to take one. You could be sanctioned. I believe it's like you have to work for a day, or you have to like do it's kind of like community service, basically, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
You can be regressed down a phase. They could have you checking in um, once every 2 weeks, then you can go to every single week again. I've seen people have to have what's that device you have to blow for alcohol? Like when it beeps throughout the day.
Yeah, sobriety, or sometimes we'll put someone on a GPS monitoring device for a sanction. Yes.
Yep. Those are the ones I've seen. Obviously threatened for termination from the program, giving people like severe warnings after these sanctions haven't worked. But I've only had to see that once in the time I had been there. So it's not very common. It's just for people who aren't doing well with the given structure to them.
All right, we have a question that someone's asking, how would they know if their town is involved with having police or whether, I know you had said that where they could find the mental health courts for the state, but if someone wants to find out individually if their town has somebody that is working with the mental health courts, is there a way for people to find out about their specific towns?
I would probably, if they're looking into it, I would just have them probably go to the state court website and go to the mental health court part and see if their county has a mental health court, and then just go directly to that point of contact, and they'll have the most information on
And
who's part of their team and if that's the police department.
thank you. And after the webinar, you will get an email, and we'll make sure that some of these resources that we've spoken about today are included in that email as well. So I will make sure that the treatment court website is in there. Although you can just Google treatment courts New Hampshire, and it's the first thing that pops up. So it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question. In some states, there's trained volunteers that attend mental health courts with individuals as their advocates. Is there anything like that in New Hampshire?
For mental health court, no, we do not currently have it, but like I said earlier, we're looking into getting some peer support. People that are trained. We've had people that have graduated mental health court that have come and sat in on sessions and supported those people, but obviously getting someone trained and having it's similar to a peer support person like in drug court is what we're looking to do.
All right, so unless anybody else has any more questions, I didn't know, I'll turn it back over to you, Meredith, because there's no other questions at this point.
So before we wrap up today, I would just like to offer each of you an opportunity. Is there anything that you want to make sure that the folks who are listening today know that we haven't talked about? I feel like we've discussed, we've got a lot of really great questions. We've discussed a lot of aspects of mental health court, but I'll start with you, Erin. Is there anything that you want folks to make sure that folks leave with?
I mean, I have a couple things. One is that I think that mental health court can get a lot bigger. It's smaller now, and I think the more people hear about it and the more word of mouth goes around, that more people can get sentenced into the program. I think it's a great way to support people and divert them from jail and the criminal justice system. And I mean, that's our ultimate goal, is to have them not come back and not be arrested again. So I think word of mouth, these sort of things, telling people, getting all parties to buy into mental health court as a way to deal with some sort of sentence, would be what I hope from that gets out more. And then the second thing is, I do this job because of people like Travis. He's from the beginning done really well, and I really appreciate that he came here and is talking.
Travis, is there anything you'd add?
No, that's that. Again, I'm grateful that I was able to share my story, and hopefully it helps even a couple people. It's the least I can do. Again, I was given a second chance that I'm still trying to earn every single day, day after day, just doing the right thing. But I'm just grateful. So thank you.
Well, and I thank you both. I do see we had just another question that popped up, so I'll ask that real quick before I kind of wrap everything up. Can family members be part of the team? And how would that look?
No, because and they can't even come in the session because there's obviously like HIPAA protected personal information about someone's treatment. And although we have the participants in there, so it's a team approach, they're hearing from other people, they're supporting each other. Families are not coming in. We do have the families though, if they want to, and if a participant wants, and if the families want to come to the graduation.
So, well, I would love to just say thank you for both of you. Travis, for coming on and sharing your story. I realize, that that's a big ask. And so we're really grateful that you were willing to do that and that you've shared, some of your insights and experiences. I think, we at NAMI value, lived experience so much, and being able to hear both your lived experience alongside Erin's professional experience, I think is so beneficial. And I'm sure that lots of folks are going to get quite a lot out of this webinar. And so as we wrap up today, I just want to remind folks that I know I've said it several times, but this is being recorded. And so this will be on our NAMI YouTube channel page, which that information will be in the follow-up email that you'll get. I believe it's 24 hours after. And so please share widely if this is beneficial to you. Please share it with other folks. We also will be sending along a survey in that same email. And if you complete the survey, you will get a certificate of attendance. So if that's something that you need and want, we very much appreciate the feedback that you give us, so that as we continue to provide webinars, we can continue to provide topics and resources that are really beneficial to everyone. So I thank you all for joining us today. Hope everyone has a great day, and appreciate both you and Erin. Travis, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.